Emma Hart's hands trembled as she clutched the crumpled printout. 42nd floor. Human resources. The elevator doors slid open, revealing plush carpeting and abstract art that screamed money. This didn't look like any HR department she'd ever seen. 6 months unemployed. 24 years old. A business degree that meant nothing in an economy built on rejection letters. She pushed through the heavy wooden doors and froze. 12 people in suits turned to stare. At the head of the mahogany table stood a man who looked like he'd been carved from marble and ambition. Dark hair, steel gray eyes, a presence that sucked the oxygen from the room. Grace Mitchell. His voice was deep, commanding. "You're finally here." Emma's throat closed. Wrong room. Wrong floor. Wrong life. "We'd almost given up on you," he continued, gesturing to an empty chair beside him. "Please, the Morrison acquisition needs your insight." She should speak. Should explain. Should run. Instead, she sat down. The meeting blurred around her. Financial projections. Market analyses. Words she recognized from textbooks she'd memorized while her classmates partied. Julian Blackwood talked about integration timelines, and Emma saw the problem before he finished speaking. The real issue, she heard herself say, isn't the acquisition price. It's the integration timeline. Morrison has legacy systems that'll take 18 months to merge, but you're projecting full capacity in 6 months. That gap is where you'll lose money. Silence crashed over the room. Julian turned to her slowly. His gray eyes burned into hers. Go on, something unlocked in her brain. Phase it in 3 stages. Reduce risk. Maintain their revenue streams while implementing your systems gradually. It'll take longer, but you'll avoid the chaos that kills these deals. A woman in navy leaned forward. That's brilliant. Grace, this is exactly what we needed. 2 hours dissolved. Every question pulled her deeper. Every answer made the lie bigger. Julian watched her throughout, his attention like sunlight through a magnifying glass. Focused and burning. When the others filed out, he approached. Impressive work today, Grace. You cut straight to the heart of problems. Most strategists hide behind jargon. Thank you. Her voice barely worked. I'd like to discuss your compensation over dinner tonight. 8 o'clock? This was it. The moment to confess? 8 would be perfect. His smile transformed him from intimidating to dangerously attractive. Excellent. My driver will pick you up. What's your address? She gave him her studio apartment address. The one in the neighborhood where chief strategy officers definitely didn't live. In the elevator. Reality hit like ice water. She'd lied to a billionaire. Impersonated someone else. Agreed to dinner with a man who thought she was someone she'd never be. But for 2 hours, she'd felt valuable, respected. Seen. Emma stepped onto the street and looked up at Sterling Tower. Piercing the gray Chicago sky, one dinner wouldn't hurt. Anyone she had until 8 to figure out who Grace Mitchell was. Supposed to be. She had until 8 to become someone. Worthy of Julian Blackwood's attention. The lie had started by accident. What happened next would be her choice. At 7:30, Emma stood before her closet in her underwear. Laptop open to articles about Blackwood Enterprises. Grace Mitchell, Harvard MBA, 5 years corporate restructuring. Hired from a prestigious New York firm. Emma was nothing like her. The black graduation dress would have to do. Scuffed heels. Shaking hands as she applied makeup, the town car arrived at 8 sharp. Leather seats that cost more than her rent. 20 minutes through glittering downtown to a restaurant where she couldn't afford water. Julian stood when she entered. Navy suit. That devastating smile. Grace, you look beautiful, they ordered. Small talk about Chicago, weather, wine. Then he leaned forward with genuine curiosity. Tell me about yourself, Grace. Beyond the credentials. Who are you? Emma made a split-second decision. She couldn't fake Grace Mitchell's past, but she could tell the truth, stripped of her real name. I grew up in a small Wisconsin town. My parents worked hard to give me opportunities they never had. My father managed a hardware store. My mother taught school. They showed me that intelligence and work matter more than where you come from. Julian's expression softened. I respect that. I built Blackwood from nothing. Started with a failing tech company and 2 employees. People said I'd be bankrupt in 6 months. What made you keep going? Spite, mostly. He smiled, but something darker flickered in his eyes, and the need to prove I was more than my father's disappointment. The conversation flowed like they'd known each other for years. Julian talked about the loneliness of success. Emma talked about the terror of failure. The wine arrived, then appetizers neither of them touched. Can I be honest with you? Julian asked, his voice low. Please. I've interviewed dozens of strategists. They're all brilliant on paper, but you're different. You see things they don't. You think like someone who's had to fight for every opportunity. Emma's chest tightened. He was describing her, not Grace Mitchell. In the meeting today, he continued, You reminded me why I started this company. Not for the money, for the challenge. For proving impossible things are possible. His hand moved across the table. His fingers brushed hers. Electricity shot up her arm. Grace, I want to be direct. I don't normally do this with employees, but there's something between us. Tell me you feel it too. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. She should pull away. Should confess. Should end this before it became something she couldn't control. Instead, she turned her hand over. Let his fingers intertwine with hers. I feel it. Julian's eyes darkened with intensity. Then we have a problem, because I can't stop thinking about you. And that's not something that happens to me. The restaurant hummed around them. Soft jazz, clinking glasses. The world reduced to the space between their faces. What do we do about it? Emma whispered. We could pretend this is just professional. We could maintain appropriate boundaries. He paused. Or we could be honest about what's happening here. What's happening? Julian's thumb traced circles on her palm. Something that could destroy everything we've both worked for. Or something that could be extraordinary. Emma knew she was standing at a cliff edge. One more step, and there'd be no going back. I vote for extraordinary, she said. Julian stood, still holding her hand. Come with me. Where? Does it matter? It didn't. Emma rose, let him lead her through the restaurant to a private exit. His driver waited with the town car. They climbed into the back seat, and Julian gave an address Emma didn't recognize. Where are we going? She asked. My penthouse. Unless you want me to take you home? Every rational thought screamed at her to say yes, go home, end this now. But Emma had spent 6 months being rational, being careful, being rejected. Tonight, she wanted to be reckless. Your place. Julian's smile was slow and dangerous. He pulled her close, his lips inches from hers. Grace Mitchell, you're going to be the death of me. The car moved through Chicago's gleaming streets. Julian's hand cupped her face. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. I should fire you before this goes any further, he murmured. It's the ethical thing to do. Don't you dare. Then we're breaking every rule in my company handbook. Good. Their lips met, and Emma stopped thinking entirely. Julian kissed like he did everything else. Intense, consuming, purposeful. His hand tangled in her hair. Her fingers gripped his jacket. The world outside the car disappeared when they finally broke apart. Both breathing hard, Julian pressed his forehead to hers. Last chance to change your mind, Grace. Emma's real name sat on her tongue. The truth begged to be spoken. But Julian was looking at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking for years. I'm not changing my mind. The car pulled up to a building that made Sterling Tower look modest. Julian led her through a private elevator that required a key. Up, to the top floor. His penthouse was all windows and city lights. Chicago spread below them like scattered diamonds. Can I get you a drink? Julian asked. I don't need a drink. He turned to face her, the intensity in his eyes making her breath catch. What do you need? Honestly, to stop pretending. Pretending what? Emma's heart raced. For one dangerous moment, she almost told him everything. Almost confessed that she wasn't Grace Mitchell. That she'd stumbled into his meeting by accident. that everything was built on a lie that grew bigger by the second. Instead, she said, that I'm not terrified by how much I want this. Julian crossed the space between them in 3 strides. His hands framed her face. I'm terrified too. I don't do this, Grace. I don't lose control. I don't risk everything for someone I just met. Then why are you? Because when you walked into that conference room today, something changed. I've built my entire life on calculated risks. This feels different. This feels inevitable. He kissed her again, deeper this time. Emma's back hit the window. The city sparkled behind her. Julian's body pressed against hers, solid and warm and real. Stay with me tonight? He whispered against her lips. Yes. They moved through the penthouse in a blur. His bedroom overlooked the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows. A bed that looked like a storm cloud. Julian's jacket hit the floor. Emma's heels kicked off, but as his fingers found the zipper of her dress, as reality crystallized around her, Emma froze. Ow. Wait. Julian pulled back immediately. Did I misread this? No. I just need a moment. He stepped away, giving her space. His hair was disheveled from her fingers. His eyes were dark with desire, but also concern. Patient. Waiting, Emma looked at him. This brilliant, complicated man who trusted her, who'd shared his vulnerabilities. Who thought he was falling for Grace Mitchell, and he was actually falling for a desperate graduate who'd lied her way into his life? Julian. I have to tell you something. His expression shifted, guarded. Okay, I'm not who you think I am. Silence stretched between them. Outside, Chicago glittered and breathed. Inside, Emma's world balanced on a knife's edge. What do you mean? Julian asked quietly. Emma opened her mouth to confess everything. To tell him the truth about Grace Mitchell, about the wrong floor, about 6 months of unemployment and desperation. But before she could speak, Julian's phone erupted with a shrill ring. He glanced at it, frowning. I'm sorry. This is my head of security. He only calls for emergencies, he answered. This better be critical. Emma watched his face transform from concerned to shocked to something that looked like betrayal. His voice went cold. When did this happen? And you're certain? Another pause, longer this time. His eyes locked on Emma. I understand. Thank you for informing me. He lowered the phone. The man who'd kissed her moments ago had disappeared. In his place stood a stranger with ice in his veins. Julian. What's wrong? That was interesting timing. You were about to tell me you're not who I think you are. Emma's blood turned to slush. I can explain. Can you? He took a step toward her, his entire demeanor radiating controlled fury. Because I just learned something fascinating. The real Grace Mitchell was in a car accident 2 days ago in New York. She's been unconscious in a hospital. She couldn't possibly have been in my conference room today. The floor dropped out from under Emma's world, so I'll ask you one more time. Julian's voice was deadly quiet. Who the hell are you? Emma's legs nearly gave out. The Chicago skyline blurred behind Julian's shoulder. I'm Emma Hart. The words fell like stones into water. Julian's jaw tightened, a muscle jumping beneath his skin. Emma Hart, he repeated slowly. Each syllable dripped with controlled rage. And who exactly is Emma Hart? I'm nobody, her voice cracked. I came for an interview. Entry-level administrative position. I got off on the wrong floor. You called me Grace Mitchell and I should have corrected you. But I needed the job so badly, and then I was sitting in that meeting and I understood everything you were talking about, and I just kept going. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Julian turned away from her. His shoulders rigid, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. You're sorry? He laughed, but the sound held no humor. You committed fraud. You impersonated a corporate officer. You wasted my time, my board's time. And then you came to my home under false pretenses. It wasn't like that. Spun back to face her. Then what was it like, Emma? Because from where I'm standing, you're a liar who saw an opportunity and took it. Was seducing me part of the plan? Get close to the CEO? Maybe blackmail him later? The accusation hit like a physical blow. No, God, no. What happened between us was real. Real. His voice rose. You don't even know what real means. Everything about you is a lie. My feelings aren't a lie. Tears burned Emma's eyes. Everything I said at dinner was true. My parents, my background, how I felt when you talked about proving yourself. That was me, Julian. Not some character I was playing. Don't say my name. The coldness in his voice froze her. You don't have the right. Emma wrapped her arms around herself. The dress that had made her feel sophisticated now felt like a costume. What are you going to do? What should I do? Call the police? Have you arrested for fraud? Impersonation? Take your pick of charges, please. The word came out as a whisper. Julian's eyes blazed. You're begging? That's rich. Did you think about the consequences when you sat in my meeting? When you let me pour my heart out over dinner? When you came to my home? I wasn't thinking. I was desperate. Desperation doesn't excuse this. He grabbed his phone. I should make that call right now, but you won't. The certainty in her voice made him pause. What makes you so sure? Because if you were going to, you already would have. Emma straightened, finding strength she didn't know she had. You're angry. You have every right to be. But you're also someone who built an empire from nothing. You know what desperation looks like? Don't psychoanalyze me. I'm not. I'm just saying that the man who told me about proving his father wrong understands fighting for a chance. A chance? Julian's laugh was bitter. You lied your way into my life. I did. And the acquisition strategy I suggested? Was that wrong? His silence was answer enough. The phased integration approach, Emma continued, her voice gaining strength. The risk mitigation. Was any of that bad advice? That's not the point. Then what is the point? That I'm a fraud who doesn't deserve to be heard. Or that everything I said was actually valuable? Julian stared at her for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was dangerously quiet. Get out, Julian. Said get out now, before I change my mind about calling the police. Emma grabbed her heels and ran. Through the penthouse, into the elevator, down to the street. The night air hit her face like a slap. She walked 10 blocks in bare feet before her legs gave out on a bus stop bench. She'd destroyed everything. Ruined the first real opportunity she'd had. Hurt the first man who'd made her feel alive in months. Emma pulled out her phone with shaking hands. No money for a cab. No way home except the train. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number, hello. Emma Hart? A woman's voice, professional, clipped. Who is this? My name is Victoria Chen. I'm Julian Blackwood's head of legal affairs. We need to meet. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Blackwood Enterprises. He's pressing charges. Come to the meeting, Miss Hart. Don't make this worse. The line went dead. Emma sat on that bench until dawn broke over Chicago. Cold seeped into her bones. Regret sat like a stone in her chest. At 8:45, she walked back into Sterling Tower. Same marble floors. Same fountain. Everything looked different now. The elevator to the 42nd floor felt like ascending to an execution. Victoria. Chen waited in a conference room. Sharp suit, sharper eyes, a briefcase that probably cost more than Emma's entire wardrobe. Sit, Emma sat. Do you know how much damage you could have caused? Victoria's voice was ice. Corporate espionage. Intellectual property theft. Securities fraud. Julian could press any number of charges that would send you to prison. I didn't steal anything. I didn't sell information. I just wanted a chance. A chance. Victoria leaned forward. You committed fraud? I know. Emma met her eyes. And I'll accept whatever consequences come. But I need you to know that everything I suggested in that meeting was legitimate. I have a business degree from Northwestern. I graduated with honors. I understand corporate strategy. I just couldn't get anyone to give me a shot. So you lied. So I got desperate. Emma's voice cracked. 6 months unemployed. Student loans piling up. Rejection after rejection. And then there was this door and this moment, and I took it. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm just telling you why. Victoria studied her in silence. Then she opened her briefcase and pulled out a contract. Julian is not pressing charges. Emma's breath caught. What? He should, but he's not. Instead, he's making you an offer. I don't understand. You're good at what you do. Annoyingly good. Your acquisition strategy was brilliant. The board agrees. Julian agrees, even though he'd rather fire you into the sun right now. Victoria slid the contract across the table. 6-month consulting contract. Fixed term. Significant pay cut from what Grace Mitchell would have earned, but more than an entry-level position. You'll work directly under Julian on the Morrison acquisition and nothing else. At the end of 6 months, we'll evaluate. If you perform, we'll discuss a permanent role. Emma stared at the document. Her name at the top. Emma Hart, not Grace Mitchell. Why would he do this? Because he's an idiot who sees potential even when he should see a liability. Victoria's expression softened slightly. Also because I told him the legal battle would be messier than it's worth. You didn't actually steal anything or cause damages. You lied on a resume that wasn't even yours. Prosecuting you would create publicity he doesn't need. There has to be a catch. There is. Victoria's eyes hardened. You stay away from Julian personally. No dinners. No private meetings. No conversations that aren't strictly professional. If you so much as smile at him in an elevator, this contract voids and we press charges. Understood? Emma's chest ached. The memory of Julian's lips on hers, his fingers in her hair, the way he'd looked at her, like she was extraordinary. Gone. All of it gone. Understood sin here. Victoria pushed a pen toward her. Emma signed. The pen felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Start Monday? 9th floor. There's a strategist team that works on acquisitions. You'll be assigned a cubicle and a supervisor. You will not go to the 42nd floor. You will not contact Julian. You will do your job and nothing else. Can I ask you something? Victoria raised an eyebrow. You can ask, how is he, Julian? Furious? Betrayed? Stupid enough to give you a second chance anyway. Victoria stood. Don't waste it, Miss Hart. This is more than you deserve. I know. Victoria left. Emma sat alone in the conference room, contract in hand. She'd gotten what she wanted. A job, a chance, an opportunity to prove herself. But the cost was higher than she'd ever imagined. That weekend passed in a blur. Emma researched everything about the Morrison acquisition, prepared presentations, made herself into the best consultant Blackwood Enterprises had ever seen. Monday morning arrived. Emma reported to the 9th floor. Generic cubicle. Shared desk space. A supervisor named Richard, who looked at her like she was something unpleasant. He'd stepped in. You're the girl who lied her way into the executive. Meeting news traveled fast. I don't care what strings you pulled. You work for me now. And I don't tolerate mediocrity. You won't get it from me. Richard handed her a stack of files. Morrison acquisition. Integration timeline. To Friday. Make it good. Emma buried herself in work. Days blurred together. She arrived early, stayed late, her cubicle filled with notes, charts, projections. She didn't see Julian. Not once. He was 42 floors above her, in a different stratosphere entirely. But every night, alone in her apartment, Emma thought about the way he'd looked at her in that penthouse. The way he'd kissed her. The way he'd whispered that she was inevitable. Thursday afternoon, Emma was deep in revenue analysis when her phone rang. Internal line. Unknown extension. Hello? Emma Hart. A male voice. Not Julian. This is Thomas Wright, CFO. I need you in conference room B now. Emma's heart raced. Is something wrong? Just get up here. He hung up. Conference room B was on the 42nd floor. Emma's hands shook as she gathered her files. The elevator ride felt eternal. She stepped onto plush carpeting and memories flooded back. That first day, that first lie, conference room B was smaller than the main boardroom. Through the glass walls, she saw a group of executives. And at the head of the table, Julian, Their eyes met through the glass. Emma's breath caught. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes. His tie loosened. The intensity in his gaze made her want to run toward him and away from him in equal measure. Thomas Wright opened the door. "Miss Hart, please join us." "Okay." Emma walked in on legs that barely worked. She sat at the far end of the table, as far from Julian as possible. "We have a problem with Morrison," Thomas said. "The integration timeline is collapsing. The team handling it has hit roadblocks. We need fresh eyes." He gestured to Emma. "You suggested the phased approach. Walk us through implementation." Emma swallowed hard. Julian hadn't looked away from her. His expression was unreadable. "The key," she began, her voice steadier than she felt, "is treating Morrison as a partner, not an acquisition. Their legacy systems aren't obstacles. They're assets that need translation, not replacement." For 20 minutes, Emma laid out a detailed plan. Phase 1, establish parallel systems. Phase 2, gradual data migration. Phase 3, seamless integration with no disruption to Morrison's existing clients. When she finished, silence filled the room. Thomas looked impressed. "This is exactly what we needed." "It's more than that," another executive said. "It's brilliant." Julian finally spoke. His voice was cold, professional. "Implement it." "Emma, you'll oversee Phase 1 personally, sir." "Problem?" "No. I just thought I was limited to consulting. Your contract says you work on Morrison acquisition." "This is Morrison acquisition." His eyes bore into hers. "Unless you can't handle it?" The challenge hung in the air. Emma lifted her chin. "I can handle it. Then we're done here." Julian stood. "Emma, stay. We need to discuss logistics." The room emptied. Emma's heart hammered. They were alone. Julian closed the door, leaned against it. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "You look terrible," Emma finally said. "It's funny. I was thinking the same about you. I haven't been sleeping. Neither have I." Julian pushed off the door, moved closer. Not close enough to touch, but close enough that Emma could smell his cologne. "I've been trying to figure out if I made a mistake giving you this contract. Have you decided?" "Not yet." His voice dropped. "Do you know what the worst part is? That I lied to you? That everything you said was true. Your insights, your strategies, your mind. All of it was real. Just not your name. Julian, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am. Sorry doesn't change what you did. It was closer now. Too close. Sorry doesn't make me stop thinking about you every damn second." Emma's breath caught. "The contract says we can't have personal contact." "I know what the contract says. I wrote it. Then why are you standing this close?" "Because I'm trying to decide if I'm going to fire you or kiss you." The air between them crackled. Emma's entire body hummed with awareness. "Which one are you leaning toward?" Julian's hand came up. His fingers ghosted along her jaw, not quite touching. "I should fire you. Send you away. Forget you exist. But I can't forget the way you looked in that conference room. Like you'd been waiting your whole life for someone to ask your opinion. Like you'd finally found where you belonged. I felt that way. I know. I saw it." His thumb brushed her lower lip. "And I can't forget the way you kissed me. Like I was air and you were drowning." "Julian, this is a bad idea. The worst." His forehead pressed to hers. "Tell me to stop." Emma closed her eyes. Every rational thought screamed at her to step back. To protect herself? To follow the contract? Instead, she whispered, "I can't." Julian's control shattered. He kissed her like a man possessed. Hard and desperate and hungry. Emma's files scattered across the conference table. His hands tangled in her hair. Her fingers gripped his shirt. Wrong. This was so wrong. Contract violations? Ethical boundaries. Professional suicide. Emma didn't care. Julian lifted her onto the conference table. Stood between her knees. The city stretched below them through the windows, witnesses to their self-destruction. "We can't keep doing this," Julian said against her throat. "I know. It's going to ruin everything. I know. I don't care." He pulled back to look at her. His eyes were wild. God help me, Emma. I don't care. She cupped his face. Neither do I. They stood there, breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. Outside, the city hummed with life. Inside, they were building something doomed and beautiful. Emma's phone buzzed. Then Julian's. Both at once, they pulled apart. Julian checked his phone first. His expression changed from desire to confusion to horror. What? Emma asked. It's from my head of security again. His voice was flat. Grace Mitchell woke up from her coma. She's flying to Chicago. She'll be here tomorrow. Emma's blood turned to ice. Why? Julian looked at her with something that might have been pity. She wants her job back. Grace Mitchell arrived at Sterling Tower like a force of nature. Emma watched through the 9th floor window as a black sedan pulled up. A woman emerged, tall, polished, designer suit. The kind of confidence that came from never having to prove yourself, everything Emma wasn't. That's her, Richard said behind Emma, his voice carrying satisfaction. The real deal. Should be interesting watching her meet you. Emma's stomach twisted. I'm not scheduled to meet with her. You think that matters? Word is Julian called a full executive meeting. All senior staff. And you're overseeing the Morrison acquisition now. Which makes you senior staff whether you like it or not. I can't be in the same room with her. Then you probably shouldn't have stolen her identity. Richard walked away, leaving Emma drowning in panic. Her phone buzzed. Victoria Chen's conference room of 30 minutes. Don't be late. Emma changed in the bathroom. Tried to tame her hair. Stared at her reflection and saw an imposter looking back. The 42nd floor was buzzing. Executives in clusters, voices low and urgent. Emma slipped into conference room A and took a seat at the far end. Julian entered first. His eyes found hers immediately, a flash of something that might have been concern before his professional mask slammed into place. Then came the executives, the board members, Victoria Chen, and finally, Grace Mitchell. She was even more impressive up close. Harvard MBA, written in every confident stride, 5 years of corporate success in the set of her shoulders. Emma felt herself shrinking. Thank you all for coming on short notice, Julian began. As you know, Grace Mitchell was supposed to join us 3 weeks ago. Due to unforeseen medical circumstances that was delayed, I'm pleased to announce she's made a full recovery and is ready to begin her position as Chief Strategy Officer. Applause rippled through the room. Grace smiled, gracious and professional. I appreciate the warm welcome, she said. Her voice was smoother than Emma's, more polished. I apologize for the delay. Car accidents have terrible timing, but I'm excited to dive into the Morrison acquisition and the other strategic initiatives we discussed during my interview process. Emma's hands clenched under the table. This was it. The moment Grace would ask about the mysterious woman who'd been impersonating her. But Julian continued smoothly. Grace, let me introduce you to the team. This is Thomas Wright, CFO. Victoria Chen, Head of Legal. He moved around the table, naming names, until he reached Emma. And this is Emma Hart. She's been consulting on the Morrison acquisition while we waited for you to arrive. Grace's eyes landed on Emma, sharp, assessing. Emma Hart, have we met? Emma's mouth went dry. No, we haven't. Funny. You look familiar. I have that kind of face, Emma managed. Grace studied her for another moment, then smiled. Well, I look forward to hearing your insights on Morrison. Julian speaks highly of your work. The meeting proceeded. Emma sat frozen, watching Grace command the room with the ease of someone who belonged there. Every comment was sharp. Every question revealing. This was who Julian had hired. This was who Emma could never be. After an hour, Julian dismissed everyone except Grace and Emma. I thought the three of us should discuss Morrison, he said. His voice was carefully neutral. Emma has been developing the integration strategy. Grace, you'll be taking over strategic leadership. I want you both on the same page. Grace looked between them. Certainly. Emma, walk me through what you've done. For 20 minutes, Emma presented her phased integration approach. Grace listened intently, asking pointed questions that revealed the depths of her experience. When Emma finished, Grace leaned back. This is impressive work. The parallel systems approach is exactly right. Who developed this? I did, Emma said. With what team? No team, just me. Grace's eyebrows rose. You're a consultant? Yes, with which firm? Emma's heart hammered. I'm independent. How long have you been in corporate strategy? The question hung in the air. Julian's jaw tightened. 6 months, Emma said quietly. 6 months? Grace's tone sharpened. And before that, I graduated from Northwestern. Business degree. Undergraduate. Yes. Grace turned to Julian. You hired an undergraduate with 6 months of experience to develop strategy for $1 billion acquisition. Emma's work speaks for itself, Julian said evenly. Does it? Or have you been so desperate for strategic leadership that you've let an inexperienced consultant make critical decisions? Grace's voice remained professional, but steel ran through it. Julian, I appreciate initiative, but this is my department now. I need to review everything Emma has done before we proceed. Grace, I understand your concern, but Emma's strategy is sound. I'll be the judge of that. Grace stood. Emma, I'll need all your files. Analysis, projections, implementation plans, everything. I want it on my desk by end of day. Emma looked at Julian. He gave a slight nod. Of course, Emma said. Grace swept out. The door closed behind her with a decisive click. She's going to dismantle everything I've built, Emma said quietly. She's going to try. Julian's voice was tight. But she can't dismantle good work. Your strategy is solid. It won't matter. She's everything I'm not. Experienced, credentialed, exactly who you hired.
Emma, don't.
She stood. She's right to question me. I'm a fraud who got lucky. She's the real thing. Stop. Why? It's true. I lied my way into your life. She earned her place. There's no comparison. Julian crossed to her. You're right. There's no comparison. Because you see things she doesn't. You think in ways she can't. That's just desperation making me creative. That's talent. His hand cupped her face. And I'm not going to let her bury you. Julian, she's your chief strategy officer. And you're the woman who made me feel something for the first time in years. His thumb stroked her cheek. I'm not losing that. You don't have a choice. The contract. The professional boundaries. And now Grace is here. Screw the contract. Can't mean that. I've never meant anything more. Julian's eyes blazed. Emma, I've spent 3 weeks trying to forget you. Trying to convince myself that what we had was just attraction based on a lie. It hasn't worked, because I'm a project. Someone to fix. That's what you do, Julian. You rebuild failing companies. Don't reduce this to that. Then what is it? It's you walking into my conference room and changing everything. It's your mind matching mine. It's the way you kiss me like I'm the only person who exists. His forehead pressed to hers. It's me falling in love with you, even though I know I shouldn't. Emma's breath caught. You don't love me. You don't even know me. I know that you're brilliant and scared and brave enough to take chances that terrify you. I know that you see problems differently than anyone I've ever met. I know that when I'm with you, success doesn't feel empty anymore, Julian. Stop. Why? Because it's inconvenient? Because Grace Mitchell is here? Because loving you makes everything complicated? Yes, all of that, yes. He pulled back slightly. What do you want, Emma? Really want? I want to deserve this job. I want to prove I'm not just some imposter. I want to wake up without feeling like I'm drowning in lies. God. What about us? Emma's eyes burned with unshed tears. There can't be an us. Not now. Maybe not ever. I don't accept that. You don't have a choice. Like hell I don't.
Yeah.
Julian's hands framed her face. I'm the CEO of this company. I make the rules. And breaking them destroys everything you've built. Then maybe it's time to rebuild. Before Emma could respond, the door opened. Victoria Chen stood there, her expression thunderous. We have a problem. Julian dropped his hands from Emma's face, stepped back. Professional distance that felt like miles. "What kind of problem?" he asked. Grace Mitchell just filed a formal complaint. Victoria entered, closing the door. "She's demanding Emma be removed from the Morrison acquisition immediately." "On what grounds?" Julian's voice went cold. "Lack of credentials. And get this, she suspects Emma of corporate espionage." Emma's world tilted. "What?" "Grace claims the strategy you developed is too sophisticated for someone with your background. She thinks you stole it from proprietary documents." "That's insane," Julian said. "Emma developed that strategy from scratch. Can you prove that?" Victoria asked. "Were there witnesses? Documentation of her process?" Emma's chest tightened. "I worked alone. Late nights. Most of it was in my head before I put it on paper. Then it's your word against hers." Victoria looked grim. "And she's a Harvard MBA with 5 years of success. You're an entry-level consultant who lied her way into this company." "I didn't steal anything," Emma said. "Every word of that strategy came from my own analysis." "I believe you," Victoria said. "But belief doesn't hold up in court. Grace is building a case. She has lawyers. She has credibility. She wants you gone, and she has ammunition." Julian's jaw clenched. "This is about territory. Grace feels threatened." "Of course she does," Victoria replied. "Emma is doing the job Grace was hired for. Doing it well? Grace sees that as competition." "So we fight the complaint," Julian said. "With what?" "Emma's word. Her conviction that she's good at her job." Victoria shook her head. "Julian, I know you care about her, but this is a losing battle. I'm not giving up. You might have to." Victoria turned to Emma. "I'm sorry, but Grace Mitchell has the power to make your life hell. And if this goes to litigation, your impersonation will come out. Every news outlet will run the story. Con artist infiltrates billion-dollar corporation. It'll destroy you." Emma felt the walls closing in. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you should resign. Take a severance package. Walk away before this gets ugly." "No." Julian's voice was sharp. "That's not happening." "It might have to," Emma said quietly. "Don't." Shh. She looked at him. Really looked at him. At the man who'd given her a chance when he should have pressed charges. Who'd believed in her when no one else would. Who'd just said he was falling in love with her.
"Oh,
"Julian, she's right. Grace will destroy me, and she'll damage you in the process. Your company, your reputation, everything you've built. I don't care, but I do." Emma's voice broke. "I care about you too much to let that happen." The room fell silent. Victoria watched them with something that might have been sympathy. "Give me 24 hours, Emma said to Victoria. "Let me compile everything I have. Every note, every analysis, every piece of my process. If Grace still wants me gone after that, I'll resign." Victoria hesitated. "Okay, 24 hours. But Emma, I have to warn you, it probably won't be enough." She left. Emma and Julian stood in the empty conference room, the space between them heavy with everything unsaid. "You're not resigning," Julian said. "I might have to over my dead body." "Julian, listen to me." Emma took a shaky breath. "Grace Mitchell is everything you need. Experienced, connected, exactly who you hired. I'm just a girl who got lucky and fell too hard too fast. Stop selling yourself short. I'm being realistic. You gave me a chance. You showed me I could do this work. But maybe that's enough. Maybe knowing I'm capable is the victory. That's bullshit, and you know it." Julian closed the distance between them. "You're scared. So you're running? I'm protecting you." "I don't need protection. I need you fighting for this. Fighting for us." "There is no us." "Not really. Just a lie that spiraled into something we both wanted to believe. Look me in the eye and tell me what we have is a lie." "Ow." Emma met his gaze. Saw the intensity, the conviction, the raw emotion he was trying to contain. "What we have is impossible." "That's not what I asked." "Julian, please. Don't make this harder. How can I make it easy?" How can I watch you walk away from something extraordinary because you're too afraid to fight for it? I'm not afraid. Then prove it. His hands gripped her shoulders. Prove Grace wrong. Prove you belong here. Prove that what we have is worth the risk.
Emma wanted to.
God, she wanted to believe it was possible. But the weight of her deception, Grace's credentials, Victoria's warning, it was too much. I don't know how, she whispered. Figure it out, because I'm not letting you go without a fight. He kissed her then, hard and desperate and full of everything they couldn't say. Emma kissed him back, memorizing the taste of him, the feel of his hands in her hair, the way he held her like she was precious. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Emma knew this might be the last time. 24 hours, she said. I'll give you everything I have, and then we see if it's enough. Emma spent that night in her apartment, surrounded by papers and files and every piece of analysis she'd ever done. She documented her process, step by step, showed her research, her thinking, her evolution of ideas at 3A.M. She admitted the truth. It wasn't enough. Grace Mitchell had years of experience. Emma had intuition and desperation. The battle was over before it began. At 7 a.m., Emma's phone rang. Victoria Chen. Don't come in today, Victoria said without preamble. What happened? Grace filed an official complaint with the board. She's demanding your immediate termination. On what grounds? The espionage angle didn't stick, so she pivoted. She's claiming you used sexual impropriety to gain Julian's favor. Emma's blood ran cold. What? She has witnesses who saw you and Julian in conference rooms together, alone, behind closed doors. She's building a harassment case. That's insane. Julian never harassed me. She's not claiming he harassed you. She's claiming you seduced him to secure your position, that you manipulated him into keeping you employed despite lack of qualifications. Emma sank onto her couch. That's not what happened. I know. Julian knows. But Grace is smart. She's using company policy against you. Policy that you and Julian violated when you kissed in that conference room. How does she know about that? Security footage. Building cameras. She requested it under her authority as Chief Strategy Officer. Emma felt her world crumbling. Victoria, I never meant to hurt Julian or this company. I believe you. But intentions don't matter now. Grace wants you gone, and she has the ammunition to make it happen. What does Julian say? He's in meetings with the board, fighting for you. But Emma, you need to understand something. If this goes public, it destroys both of you. Julian for violating company ethics policy, you for everything else. Then I'll resign. Today, right now. It's too late for that. Grace wants blood. She wants a formal termination with documentation. She wants to make sure you can never work in corporate strategy again. Emma's hands shook. Why? What did I do to her? You took her job, even temporarily, and now you're taking Julian's attention. Victoria's voice softened. Emma, Grace Mitchell, is brilliant. But she's also ruthless, and she sees you as a threat. I'm nobody. I'm just a girl who lied her way into one meeting. You're the woman Julian Blackwood is willing to risk everything for. That makes you very dangerous. The line went quiet. Emma heard traffic outside her window. Life continuing while hers fell apart. What should I do? She finally asked, honestly. I don't know. Julian's fighting the board, but if they side with Grace, there's nothing anyone can do. Tell Julian I'm sorry. Tell him yourself. Victoria hung up. Emma sat in the silence of her apartment, surrounded by all her documentation that meant nothing. Her phone rang again. Julian, don't resign, he said immediately. I have to. You don't. I'm handling this. By destroying your company. Your reputation? Everything you've built? If that's what it takes, shouldn't have to take anything. Emma's voice broke. I did this. My lie. My deception. My inability to walk away when I should have. Our inability, Julian corrected. Emma, I'm not blameless. I pursued you. I kissed you first. I told you I was falling in love with you. You shouldn't have. Probably not. But I don't regret it. You will. When the board sides with Grace, when this becomes public, when your company suffers because you chose me over common sense, not choosing you over common sense. I'm choosing you over fear, over playing it safe, over building a life that looks successful but feels empty. Emma closed her eyes. Julian, please, let me go. No, this isn't romantic. It's not some grand gesture. It's damage control. And the smartest move is for me to disappear. I don't make the smartest move when it comes to you. I make the right one. They're the same thing, not to me. Julian's voice dropped. Emma, meet me tonight. My penthouse. We'll figure this out together. Can't figure this out. Grace has won. She hasn't won until you surrender. And you don't strike me as someone who surrenders easily.
Nice.
Despite everything, Emma almost smiled. You don't know me well enough to know what I'm like, and let me learn. Meet me tonight. 8 o'clock? Same as before? This is a terrible idea. All my best ideas are terrible? That's how I built an empire. Wanted to protect them both from more damage. But the part of her that had walked through the wrong door and sat in that meeting 3 weeks ago, the part that believed impossible things might be possible, whispered yes. 8 o'clock, she said. Thank you. He hung up. Emma looked around her apartment, at the files documenting her work, at the reflection of a woman who'd pretended to be someone else, and ended up losing herself entirely. Tonight might be the end. Might be goodbye? Might be the moment she finally walked away from Julian Blackwood and the beautiful lie they'd built together. But for now, she had until 8 o'clock, and Emma Hart had learned that sometimes everything could change in a single moment. The question was, would tonight bring salvation or destruction? She wouldn't know until she walked through his door one last time. Emma stood outside Julian's building at 7:55. The same doorman who'd seen her arrive 3 weeks ago nodded in recognition. The elevator required the same key. Everything familiar, everything different. The penthouse door stood open. Emma walked through, her heart hammering. Julian stood by the windows, Chicago glittering behind him. He'd loosened his tie, rolled up his sleeves. He looked exhausted and beautiful and like everything Emma wanted but couldn't have. You came, he said. I almost didn't. What changed your mind? The chance to see you one more time before this all falls apart? Julian crossed to her. It doesn't have to fall apart. Julian, the board is meeting tomorrow. They're going to side with Grace. Victoria called me an hour ago. The votes are already counted. His jaw tightened. Then I'll make a different argument. There is no argument. Grace is right. I'm a liability. She has credentials, experience, everything this company needs. I have lies and a business degree. You have something she doesn't. What? Desperation? The ability to commit fraud? Vision. Julian's hands framed her face. Emma, do you know what Grace did today? She tore apart your Morrison strategy piece by piece. Publicly. In front of the entire board. Emma's stomach dropped. And she couldn't find a single flaw. The framework is bulletproof. The phased approach is perfect. The risk mitigation is exactly right. His eyes blazed. She spent 4 hours trying to dismantle your work and ended up proving how brilliant you are. That doesn't change anything. It changes everything. Because now the board sees what I've known from the beginning. You're not some fraud who got lucky. You're genuinely talented. Talented doesn't erase my lies. No, but it proves they came from desperation, not malice. You didn't con your way into this company to steal secrets. You saw an opportunity and took it. That's not criminal. That's entrepreneurial. Emma pulled away from him. You're rationalizing. I'm seeing clearly for the first time. Julian followed her. Emma, I've spent my career evaluating talent, deciding who has what it takes, and you have it. Raw, unpolished, terrifying potential. Grace has experience. She has a track record. Grace has a resume. You have instinct. And in this industry, instinct beats credentials every time. Tell that to the board. I will. Tomorrow. I'm proposing a new structure. You and Grace working together. Co-strategists. her experience paired with your innovation. Emma stared at him. Grace will never agree to that. She doesn't have to. I'm the CEO. My company. My rules. Julian, you can't just unilaterally decide this. Watch me. Emma felt something crack in her chest. This brilliant, impossible man was willing to blow up his entire corporate structure for her. It was romantic and reckless and completely insane. Why? She whispered. Why risk everything? Because the alternative is losing you, and I've lost enough in my life. The vulnerability in his voice broke her. Emma crossed to him, her hand touching his chest, feeling his heartbeat beneath her palm. You barely know me. I know enough. His hand covered hers. I know that when you walked into my life, everything changed. I know that talking to you feels like coming home. I know that losing you would be the biggest mistake I've ever made. What if I'm not worth it? You are. You can't know that. I do. He pulled her closer. Emma, I've built this company from nothing. I've taken risks that terrified me. I've bet everything on impossible odds, and standing here with you feels like the safest gamble I've ever made. Emma felt tears burning her eyes. I don't deserve this. Any of this. You, the job, the second chance. You deserve all of it, and I'm going to prove it to you. He kissed her. Soft this time. Tender, like she was something precious that might break. Emma kissed him back, tasting salt from tears she didn't remember crying when they broke apart. Mara rested her forehead against his chest. What happens tomorrow? I present my proposal to the board. Co-strategists, 6-month trial period, equal authority. We implement the Morrison acquisition together, Grace and you. If it works, we make it permanent. And if they say no? Julian's arms tightened around her. Then I fight harder. You can't fight forever. Watch me. They stood there, wrapped in each other, the city breathing around them. Emma wanted to freeze this moment, wanted to exist in this space where anything felt possible. Her phone shattered the silence. Victoria Chen. Again, Emma pulled away to answer. Hello? Emma, where are you? Victoria's voice was urgent. Why? Grace knows you're with Julian. She's filing an emergency motion with the board, claiming he's compromised, that his judgment is clouded by personal involvement. Julian heard. He grabbed Emma's phone. Victoria, when? Tonight? Emergency board meeting. 1 hour? On whose authority? Thomas Wright called it. The CFO has emergency powers in cases of executive misconduct. Julian's face went white. Thomas is siding with Grace. Thomas is protecting the company. And right now, Grace is making a compelling case that your relationship with Emma is creating liability. I'll be there in 20 minutes. You can't bring Emma. Like hell I can't. If she's there, it proves Grace's point. That you're letting personal feelings override professional judgment. How? Julian looked at Emma. She saw the calculation in his eyes. The impossible choice. I'll come alone, he said quietly. What? And Julian, prepare for a fight. Victoria hung up. Julian stood there, phone in hand, looking at Emma like she was the last solid thing in a world coming apart. Go, Emma said. Fight for your company. I'm fighting for you. Same thing, apparently. Julian crossed to her, kissed her forehead. This isn't over, it might be. It's not. I promise you, Emma. It's not. He grabbed his jacket and left. Emma stood in the empty penthouse, surrounded by wealth and success that felt like mockery. She pulled out her phone, made a decision that felt inevitable. Victoria answered on the first ring. Emma, I need you to do something for me. What? Draw up termination papers. Make it look like I resigned. Effective immediately. Emma, no. Julian will never forgive me. Doesn't need to know. Tell the board I resigned before the meeting. That I recognized the liability I was creating and removed myself. Emma, think about what you're doing. I am thinking. For the first time since I walked into that conference room, I'm thinking clearly. Emma's voice steadied. Julian is risking everything for me. His company, his reputation, his board's trust. I can't let him do that. He wants to fight for you, I know. But sometimes love means letting go, even when it's the last thing you want to do. Victoria was silent for a long moment. You really love him, don't you? More than I should. More than is smart. More than I can afford to. This will destroy him. Losing his company would destroy him more. Emma's eyes burned. Please, Victoria, do this for me. Let me be the one who walks away. He'll come after you. Then make sure the termination papers are ironclad. Make sure he understands it's final. Another silence. Then I'll do it. But Emma, for what it's worth, I think you're making a mistake. Probably. But it's my mistake to make. Emma hung up. Stood in Julian's penthouse one last time. Memorized the view, the city lights, the space where they'd built something beautiful and impossible. Then she left. She walked 20 blocks, through Chicago's cold night. Let the wind numb her face. Let the distance grow between her and everything that might have been. At midnight, her phone buzzed. Julian, she didn't answer. He called 3 more times. Then texted, Where are you? The board meeting is over. We need to talk. Emma turned off her phone. The next morning, she woke to pounding on her door. Julian stood there, looking like he hadn't slept. His eyes were wild, furious, desperate. You resigned. Emma stepped aside to let him in. I did. Without talking to me? Without giving me a chance to fight? There was nothing to fight. Grace was right. I'm a liability, you're not. Julian grabbed her shoulders. Emma, the board was ready to approve my proposal. Co-strategists, everything I promised. And then Victoria presented your resignation. Emma's breath caught. They were going to say yes. Yes, Thomas Wright changed his mind after seeing your Morrison analysis. The board saw your potential. They were ready to take the risk. Then I made it easier. Now there's no scandal, no liability, just Grace doing the job she was hired to do. I don't want Grace doing the job. I want you. You can't always get what you want. Julian's hands tightened on her shoulders. Don't quote philosophy at me. This is my life, our life. And you threw it away without even asking me. I didn't throw it away. I chose differently. You chose to run, chose to protect you. Don't need protection. I need you fighting beside me, not sacrificing yourself like some tragic heroine. Emma pulled away from him. Julian, listen to yourself. You're a billionaire CEO willing to restructure your company for a woman you've known 3 weeks. That's not rational. That's not smart. That's your heart overriding your brain. So what if it is? So what if I'm choosing you over logic? So you'll regret it. Maybe not today. Maybe not next month. But eventually you'll realize I was the mistake. The girl who lied and disrupted everything and wasn't worth the chaos. That's not true. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Julian closed the distance between them again. Emma, I've made a lot of decisions in my life. Built companies. Destroyed competitors. Bet millions on hunches. And standing here, choosing you, is the only decision that feels absolutely certain. Emma felt her resolve cracking. Julian, please, don't make this harder. How can I make it easy? How can I just let you walk away? By trusting that I know what's best. For both of us, you're wrong. Maybe, but it's done. I signed the termination papers. I'm officially no longer employed by Blackwood Enterprises. Julian stared at her. So that's it? You decide we're over, and I just accept it? What choice do you have? I could fight. I could refuse to accept your resignation. I could make you see reason. Or you could let me go. Let me figure out who I am without pretending to be Grace Mitchell. Without hiding behind a lie. You're not hiding. You're running. Same thing. It's not. Julian's voice broke. Emma, please, don't do this. She touched his face. Memorized the angle of his jaw, the intensity in his eyes, the way he looked at her like she was everything. I have to. Why? Because if I stay, I'll destroy you. Your company, your reputation, everything you've built. and I care about you too much to let that happen. Let me make that choice. You already did. When you fought for me at that board meeting, when you proposed restructuring for me, when you chose me over common sense, Emma's voice softened. Now it's my turn to choose, and I'm choosing to let you go. Tears she'd been holding back finally fell. Julian's thumb caught them, wiped them away. I love you, he said simply. I know it's too soon. I know it's irrational. But I love you, Emma Hart. I love you too. That's why I'm doing this. She kissed him. One last time. Poured everything she felt into it. All the love, the regret, the might-have-bins. When they broke apart, Julian rested his forehead against hers. If you leave now, I won't chase you. I'll respect your decision. But Emma, you need to know something. What? This doesn't feel like an ending. It feels like intermission, Julian. I'm not giving up on you. On us. I'm just giving you space to figure out what you want. What if what I want is impossible? Impossible is just another word for challenging. He stepped back. When you're ready, when you've figured yourself out, come find me. I'll be waiting. You shouldn't wait. I'll wait anyway. He left. Emma stood in her small apartment, listening to his footsteps fade down the hallway. The door closed with a quiet click. Silence crashed over her. Emma sank to the floor and finally let herself break. She cried for the job she'd lost, for the man she loved, for the life that had been within reach for one beautiful, impossible moment. But underneath the grief, something else stirred. Determination. Purpose. The same thing that had made her walk through that wrong door 3 weeks ago. She'd pretended to be Grace Mitchell and learned she was capable of more than she'd imagined. She'd lied her way into Julian's life and discovered parts of herself she hadn't known existed. Now she had to figure out who Emma Hart actually was, without the lies, without the desperation, without Julian Blackwood looking at her like she was extraordinary. It would take time. It would hurt. But Emma had never been afraid of difficult things. She'd proven that the moment she sat down in that conference room. 2 months passed. Emma took a job with a small consulting firm. Nothing glamorous. No billion-dollar acquisitions. Just honest work that let her sleep at night. She thought about Julian every day. Wondered if he was okay. Wondered if Grace Mitchell was thriving in the role Emma had briefly held. Wondered if he still thought about her. On a rainy Tuesday in May, Emma's phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Emma Hart. A man's voice, unfamiliar. Who is this? My name is David Chen. I'm on the board of Blackwood Enterprises. We met briefly. Emma's heart stopped. I remember calling because we have a situation, and we need your help. What kind of situation? The Morrison acquisition is falling apart. Grace Mitchell's integration strategy isn't working. We're hemorrhaging money, and the board remembers your proposal. Emma gripped the phone. I signed a termination agreement. I can't work for Blackwood. This wouldn't be official employment. More of a consulting contract. 3 months. Fix Morrison. Name your price. Does Julian know you're calling? David hesitated. This is a board decision. Julian has been overruled. That's not an answer. Julian doesn't want us to call you. He thinks we're manipulating you. Using Morrison as bait to bring you back? David's voice softened. He might be right. But Emma, the company needs you. And I think you need this too. Emma stared out her apartment window. Rain streaked the glass. Chicago looked gray and endless. I'll think about it. We need an answer by Friday. You'll have one. She hung up. Sat in the silence. Thought about Julian. About Morrison. About the chance to prove herself on her own terms. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. The board called you. Don't do it. You don't owe us anything. You don't owe me anything. Be free, Emma. Build your own life. Don't come back to mine unless it's what you really want. Not what you think you owe, Jay. Emma read the message 3 times. Julian was giving her permission to stay away. Telling her she didn't need to save him or his company. which meant going back would be her choice, not obligation, not desperation. Choice. Emma picked up her phone and called David Chen. I'll do it, but on one condition. Name it. I report directly to the board, not to Julian, not to Grace. I work independently. And when Morrison is fixed, I walk away. No negotiations. No counteroffers agreed. Then I'll see you Monday. Emma hung up. Felt something settle in her chest. Not quite peace. Not quite certainty. But something close to both. She was going back to Sterling Tower. Back to the place where she'd lost herself and found herself in equal measure. But this time, she was walking in as Emma Hart. No disguises. No lies. Just her talent, her determination, and the truth of who she'd become. And if she happened to see Julian in the halls, if their eyes met across a conference room, well, she'd deal with that when it happened. For now, Emma had work to do. Emma walked into Sterling Tower on Monday morning with her head high. No disguises. No pretending. Just Emma Hart, consultant, here to fix what was broken. The board had given her an office on the 40th floor. Neutral territory. Not close enough to Julian's executive suite to be awkward. Not far enough to feel like punishment. She spent the first week in meetings with the Morrison integration team. The problems were evident immediately. Grace's strategy had been technically perfect, but practically impossible. She'd tried to force Morrison's culture into Blackwood's mold instead of letting them coexist. Emma dismantled it piece by piece and rebuilt from scratch. She didn't see Julian. Not once. He seemed to be avoiding the floors where she worked. It hurt less than she expected. And more. 3 weeks in, Emma presented her revised strategy to the board. David Chen nodded approvingly as she walked through the phased approach, the cultural integration, the timeline that actually made sense. This is excellent work, he said when she finished. Grace Mitchell sat at the far end of the table, her expression carefully neutral. She'd been professional but distant since Emma returned. No hostility, no warmth. Just cold efficiency. I have concerns, Grace said. This approach is slower than projected. The board wanted immediate results. The board wanted sustainable results, Emma countered. Fast and broken doesn't help anyone. Grace, your strategy was brilliant on paper, David interjected. But Emma's right. We need something Morrison's people can actually implement. Grace's jaw tightened. I see. After the meeting, Emma was packing her files when Grace approached. Can we talk? Grace asked. Emma looked up surprised. Of course. They walked to an empty conference room. Grace closed the door, turned to face Emma with an expression Emma couldn't quite read. I owe you an apology, Grace said. Emma blinked. What? I tried to destroy you. Claimed you stole strategies, implied you seduced Julian, used every weapon I had to get you fired. Grace's voice was steady, but her eyes held something like shame. I told myself I was protecting the company. But honestly, I was protecting my territory. Grace, you don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Grace sat down. I spent 5 years building a reputation. Climbed every ladder, proved myself in every room, and then I almost died in a car accident. 3 weeks in a coma. When I woke up, I learned someone had taken my job. Some nobody with no credentials, no experience, and worse, they were good at it. Emma sank into a chair across from her. I'm sorry I took something that was yours. You didn't take it. You stumbled into it. And you earned it with talent I spent years developing. Grace looked at her hands. That's what I couldn't forgive. That you were naturally good at something I'd worked so hard to become. Grace, your experience matters. Your credentials matter. It's not as much as instinct. That's what I learned watching you work these past few weeks. Grace met Emma's eyes. You see patterns I miss. You think in ways I can't? And instead of learning from you, I tried to eliminate you. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm tired of fighting. And because you're fixing Morrison when I couldn't? That means something. Emma studied her. Grace Mitchell was brilliant, polished, everything Emma had pretended to be. But underneath, she was just a woman who'd almost lost everything and came back fighting. Not so different from Emma, after all. What if we worked together? Emma asked quietly. Really work together. Your experience, my instinct. We could be unstoppable. Grace laughed. A bitter sound. The board would love that. Co-strategists, just like Julian proposed. Does that be so terrible? You're really willing to share authority with the woman who tried to destroy you. Only if you're willing to learn from the woman who lied her way into your job. Grace was quiet for a long moment. Then she extended her hand. Partners? Emma shook it. Partners. Over the next month, something unexpected happened. Emma and Grace became a formidable team. Grace's structured approach balanced Emma's intuitive leaps. Emma's creative solutions enhanced Grace's methodical planning. The Morrison acquisition stabilized. Revenue streams improved. The integration timeline actually worked. David Chen called them both to a board meeting in June. Gentlemen, he said to the assembled board members, I think we need to discuss making this partnership permanent. Emma, Grace, you've exceeded every expectation. We'd like to offer you both full-time positions, co-chief strategy officers. Emma felt her heart skip. This was everything she'd wanted. Legitimacy. A real position. Recognition earned honestly, honored, Grace said. And I accept. The board looked at Emma. Miss Hart. Emma glanced around the room, saw the expectant faces, the opportunity, the chance to build something lasting, and she saw Julian's empty chair. He wasn't at this meeting. He'd deliberately stayed away. Can I have 24 hours to think about it? Emma asked. David looked surprised but nodded. Of course, we'll need your answer by tomorrow. Emma left the building. Walked through Chicago's summer streets, thought about what she really wanted. A permanent position would mean staying. Building a career. Proving herself over and over, it would also mean seeing Julian every day. In hallways, in meetings, in elevators. Watching him from a distance, professional, careful, never quite touching. Could she do that? Could she exist in his orbit without gravity pulling them together? Emma found herself standing outside a coffee shop where she used to go after failed interviews. The owner, an elderly woman named Rosa, recognized her immediately. Emma Hart, haven't seen you in months. You finally get that job? Emma sat at the counter. I got something. I'm not sure what. Rosa poured her coffee without asking. You look troubled. I am. I have to make a decision. About work or about a man? Emma smiled despite herself. Both. Same thing, apparently. Ah, Rosa nodded knowingly. The complicated kind of decision. The impossible kind. Let me tell you something, Mia. I've been making coffee for 40 years. You know what I've learned? The impossible decisions are the only ones worth making. The easy ones never change anything. Emma sipped her coffee. Let Rose's words settle. What if I make the wrong choice? Then you make a different one next time. That's how life works. You keep choosing until you get it right. Emma finished her coffee. Paige hugged Rosa goodbye. She walked back to Ward. Sterling Tower made her decision. The next morning, Emma called David Chen. I appreciate the offer, she said, but I have to decline. Well, silence on the other end. Then, can I ask why? Because I need to build something that's entirely mine. Not something I stumbled into or lied my way into or earned through scandal. Something I create from the ground up. Emma, you've proven yourself. No one questions your talent anymore. No. But I still question it. And I need to stop doing that. The only way I can is by starting fresh. What will you do? Open my own consulting firm. Work with companies that need strategy but can't afford the big firms. Make corporate expertise accessible. David was quiet. Then he laughed. That's brilliant. And brave. And very you. Thank you. For everything. For taking a chance on me, even when you shouldn't have. Emma, one more thing. Julian doesn't know I'm about to tell you this, but he's the one who convinced the board to bring you back. He argued for hours that Morrison needed you. He overrode every objection. Emma's breath caught. I thought the board overruled him. You did. But only after he'd already convinced us you were essential. Julian fought for you, even when you'd told him not to. Thought you should know that. David hung up. Emma stood in her apartment, phone in hand, heart hammering. Julian had fought for her. Even after she'd walked away. Even after she'd asked him not to, that changed everything. Emma grabbed her keys. Drove to Sterling Tower. Took the elevator to the 42nd floor for the first time in months. Julian's assistant looked startled to see her. Miss Hart, do you have an appointment? No. Is he in? He's in a meeting. I'll wait. Emma sat in the reception area. Watched executives come and go. Wondered what she'd say when she saw him. 2 hours later, Julian's office door opened. He walked out with Thomas Wright, deep in conversation. He was laughing at something Thomas said. Then he saw Emma. Everything stopped. The laughter died. His entire body went still. Thomas looked between them. I'll catch up with you later, Julian. He left. Emma stood. Julian stared at her like she was a ghost. Emma. Her name on his lips sounded like a prayer. What are you doing here? I heard you fought for me. To bring me back for Morrison. David told you that? He did. Julian's jaw tightened. He shouldn't have. You made your choice. I respected it. You did. And I appreciated it. But I need to tell you something. What? Emma took a breath. I'm not taking the permanent position. I'm starting my own firm. Something flickered in Julian's eyes. Disappointment, maybe. Or relief. That's good. That's really good, Emma. I wanted you to know before I left Chicago you're leaving. For a while, I need some space to figure out who I am when I'm not pretending or running or hiding. Julian nodded slowly. I understand. But I also wanted to tell you something else. Emma stepped closer. I love you. I have since that first night. And I know the timing is terrible, and the situation is impossible, and we've done everything backwards. But I needed you to know that before I go. Julian's expression cracked. Emma, you don't have to say anything. I just needed to tell you the truth. Finally, completely. The truth? Julian closed the distance between them. You want the truth? I've been miserable for 3 months. I've buried myself in work, avoided every floor you might be on, told myself I'd moved on. And it's all been a lie, Julian. I'm still in love with you. I never stopped. And knowing you were in this building so close but impossible to reach has been torture. Emma's eyes burned. Then why didn't you find me? Because you asked me not to. Because you needed space. Because I was trying to be the man you deserved instead of the one who couldn't let you go. What if I don't want space anymore? What are you saying? I'm saying I made my choice. I'm starting my firm. Building something that's mine. But I don't want to build it alone. Julian's hands framed her face. Are you sure? Because if we do this, we do it right. No hiding. No secrets. Just us figuring it out together, I'm sure. For the first time in my life, I'm completely sure. He kissed her. Right there in the executive hallway where anyone could see, where cameras might be watching, where the whole company would know by evening, Emma didn't care. She kissed him back with everything she had. All the love, the longing, the certainty that this was right. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Julian pressed his forehead to hers. Hey, in Chicago, he said. Start your firm here. Let me watch you build something extraordinary. Only if you promise not to interfere. No special treatment. No pulling strings. I promise. Though I reserve the right to be your biggest client. Emma laughed. Deal. They stood there in the hallway, wrapped in each other, until Julian's assistant cleared her throat. Mr. Blackwood, your 3 o'clock is here. Julian smiled. Cancel it. Cancel everything today. I have more important things to do, such as taking my girlfriend to dinner. Somewhere expensive. Somewhere I can tell her about all the plans I've been making for when she finally came back to me. Emma raised an eyebrow. You were that confident I'd come back? I was that hopeful? There's a difference. They left Sterling Tower hand in hand, walked through Chicago's summer streets to the same restaurant where they'd had their first dinner, where Emma had pretended to be Grace Mitchell, where everything had started, but this time there were no lies, no pretending. Just Emma Hart and Julian Blackwood building something real. Over wine and appetizers, neither of them touched. Julian told her about the business plan he'd sketched out for her, the office space he'd researched, the potential clients he'd identified. "You've been planning this," Emma said. "I've been hoping for it. I thought I'd be ready if you came back. What if I hadn't? Then I'd have been prepared to let you go. But I'm really glad I don't have to." Emma reached across the table, took his hand. "I'm sorry for all of it. The lies, the deception, the way I walked away. Don't apologize. You taught me something important." "What?" "That success means nothing if you're not sharing it with someone who challenges you, who sees you, who makes you want to be better. I feel the same way about you." Julian's thumb traced circles on her palm. "So what now?" "Now we start over. Honestly, openly. See where it goes." "I already know where it goes." "Oh, really?" "Yeah, it goes to you building a company that changes the industry. To us figuring out how to balance career and relationship. To probably a lot of fights about whose turn it is to compromise." He smiled. "And eventually, to you realizing that you're stuck with me for life." Emma felt tears of happiness burning her eyes. "That's pretty confident." "I'm a confident man when it comes to you." They finished dinner, walked back to Julian's penthouse, where Emma had first almost told him the truth, where she'd walked away from him 3 months ago. This time, she stayed. They made love slowly, carefully, like they had all the time in the world. Because they did. No more rushing. No more hiding. Just two people learning each other honestly. Afterwards, wrapped in Julian's arms with Chicago glittering outside the windows, Emma thought about the journey that had brought her here. The wrong door. The desperate lie. The impossible love that had grown from deception. "What are you thinking?" Julian asked. "That I walked through the wrong door and found the right life? You think any of this was an accident?" "I don't know, was it?" Julian pulled her closer. "I think some doors are wrong and right at the same time. I think you walked through one and changed both our lives. I think we were always going to find each other. Just took a mistaken identity to make it happen." "Ah!" Emma smiled against his chest. "Very romantic for a CEO. I'm only romantic for you." 6 months later, Emma Hart Strategic Consulting opened its doors. Small office. Big dreams. A client list that grew every week. Grace Mitchell was her first official client. Then David Chin's company. Then a dozen others who'd heard about the woman who could see patterns no one else noticed. Julian watched from a distance. Proud, supportive, always there when Emma needed him. Never interfering when she did. They learned each other. Fought sometimes. Made up always. Built a relationship as solid as the strategies Emma developed for her clients. A year after that first wrong door, Julian proposed. On the 42nd floor of Sterling Tower, in the conference room where Emma had first sat down and changed everything. "This is where I fell in love with you," he said, down on one knee. "This is where you walked into my life and refused to leave. Marry me, Emma. Let's make all of this official." Emma said yes through happy tears. Kissed him in the same room where their story began. They married in a small ceremony. Grace was Emma's maid of honor. Victoria Chen officiated. Rosa from the coffee shop cried in the front row, and as Emma looked at Julian saying vows that promised forever, she thought about desperation and doors and the beautiful lies that sometimes led to truth. She'd walked into the wrong. Pretended to be someone she wasn't. Lied her way into a life that seemed impossible, but in doing so, she'd found exactly who she was meant to be. Not Grace Mitchell. Not some polished corporate strategist. Not even the desperate graduate who'd been willing to do anything for a chance. Just Emma Hart, flawed and brilliant, and brave enough to keep choosing impossible things. And as Julian slipped the ring onto her finger, as their friends cheered and Chicago sprawled below them, Emma knew one thing with absolute certainty. Sometimes the wrong door leads to the right life. Sometimes lies reveal the deepest truths. And sometimes love grows from the most impossible places. She'd taken a chance, made a mistake, built something real from something false, and she'd do it all over again because this. Here now, with Julian looking at her like she was his entire world, this was worth every moment of fear, every second of doubt, every impossible choice. Emma Hart had walked through the wrong door and found her way home. The end.